This Tuvok moment in Star Trek. Voyager always brings a tear to my eye. There are many unforgettable emotional beats across Star Trek. Voyager, but there is one involving Tuvok. A moment quiet, understated, and profoundly moving that never fails to hit with the weight of 7 seasons worth of loyalty, restraint, friendship, and loss. For a character defined by control, logic, and stoicism, Tuvok's most powerful moment is one where he breaks none of his rules yet reveals everything, where emotion is present without ever being spoken aloud, and where his bond with Captain Catherine Janeway becomes one of the franchise's most beautiful expressions of trust. A moment rooted in quiet friendship. The moment in question occurs in the Season 7 episode Endgame, the series finale. There are spectacular sequences in this episode. The time travel conceit, the upgraded armor, the desperate plan to cripple the Borg Collective. But Voyager's emotional core rests on the relationships that carried it through 7 years stranded in the Delta Quadrant. And among those, Janeway and Tuvok stand apart. Throughout the series, they are never flashy. They are not like Janeway and Chakotay with their tension, nor like Janeway and Seven with their intellectual sparring. Instead, they share something quieter and older, an unspoken bond forged on Vulcan before Voyager's mission, built on decades of mutual respect. Janeway trusts Tuvok more than anyone else, and Tuvok protects Janeway in ways he never articulates. He is her compass, the one she looks to when she doubts herself. She is the one person he allows to see glimpses, just glimpses, of his internal world. And Endgame tears at that foundation with surgical precision. The moment that breaks you, present-day Tuvok, aboard the main timeline Voyager, is suffering from a degenerative neurological disease. Earlier in the season, his breakdown on a planet without a shuttle crew showcased the raw danger of suppressed Vulcan emotion. Here, the disease is much quieter and much more tragic. He is slipping away, losing touch with logic and suffering fragmented hallucinations. He is still, physically, Tuvok, but the man Janeway knows is fading. But the tear-inducing moment doesn't come from suffering. It comes from loyalty. Future Janeway, older, battle-hardened, and carrying the weight of a lifetime's regret, visits him knowing that in her timeline, she failed him. She failed to bring Voyager home in time to access treatment. She failed to save her dearest friend. She visits the present version of Tuvok, but he sees something in her eyes, something he recognizes. He may not fully understand why she is suddenly 20 years older, but he understands her pain. Then he speaks. "You're here to say goodbye." The line is delivered not with emotion, but with clarity. Vulcan clarity. It lands harder than any speech could. This is Tuvok's strength distilled into its purest form. Grace in understanding, compassion expressed through logic. For a Vulcan, acknowledging someone's emotional state is a rarity. Acknowledging their grief, and doing so without judgment or sentimentality, is intimate. In that brief moment he offers Janeway what she needs most. Permission to let go, and the assurance that she is seen. And Janeway, for perhaps the only time in the entire series, looks completely broken. Not furious, not determined, broken. She cannot fix this version of him. She cannot alter what she's already lived through. Her staunchest ally is slipping away, and there is no battle plan for that. The Vulcan way of saying, "I love you." Tuvok doesn't hug. Tuvok doesn't cry. Tuvok doesn't deliver emotional monologues. His culture, his discipline, and his training preclude it. But he does something even more powerful. He simply places his hand on the table, calm, steady, and offers presence. Vulcan connection isn't made through dramatic gestures. It's made through stillness. Tuvok gives Janeway a moment unclouded by the disease that will eventually take him. He gives her the most Vulcan gift possible: clarity and peace. For fans who watched Tuvok over the years, his subtle humor, his quiet loyalty, his serene patience, this moment feels like the culmination of everything he represents. His entire character arc has been one long exercise in emotional restraint. So when he finally acknowledges the end, when he sees Janeway's regret and meets it with acceptance, that stillness becomes heartbreaking. It hits harder because it is understated, because it is authentically Vulcan, because Tuvok would never break character, even in farewell. When Janeway's walls fall, The series has spent 7 years showing Janeway as unwaveringly strong, the Federation ideal of leadership under impossible circumstances. Even in episodes where she emotionally fractures, she never stays broken. Yet here, facing Tuvok's quiet honesty, she can't maintain her mask. The camera lingers on her face, regret etched into every line of her older self. She is a captain who has been willing to sacrifice herself, her future, her principles, even her sanity to protect her crew. But she cannot protect Tuvok from time, and that breaks her. Her pain reflects not just the bond they shared, but a leader's guilt, a guilt she carried so deeply that she altered the timeline to correct it. And the heartbreaking irony is that Tuvok's words, not emotional, not warm, but deeply perceptive, are what save her. He sees her, understands her, and acknowledges her grief without forcing her to shamefully hide it. It is the kindest thing he has ever done. Why this moment endures? Star Trek excels at emotional storytelling precisely because it rarely relies on melodrama. Tuvok's moment is the perfect example. It's a masterclass in understated writing, character consistency, and the power of silence. Here's why it resonates so deeply. 1. It's a reversal of roles. Throughout the series, Janeway guided Tuvok physically, emotionally, and professionally. Here, in Decline, Tuvok guides Janeway. 2. It celebrates a non-romantic love. Star Trek often sidelines deep platonic bonds, but Janeway and Tuvok's connection is built on decades of trust and respect. This moment honors that. 3. It acknowledges the cost of leadership. Janeway's grief exists because she cared, not as a captain, but as a friend. That duality defines her character. 4. It gives Tuvok dignity. Even while facing neurological decline, he retains his identity, logical, perceptive, and honest. His illness doesn't erase who he is. 5. It represents the Vulcan ideal, where Spock's emotional beats often danced around half-human turmoil. Tuvok's are pure Vulcan. His restraint is not a barrier, it is his language. A perfect goodbye that isn't a goodbye. What makes the scene even more poignant is what follows. The audience learns that future Janeway's radical decision to go back and bring Voyager home sooner was partly to save Tuvok. She couldn't stand losing him. She couldn't stomach the memory of his decline. And she sacrifices everything, even her own timeline, to change that outcome. It's devotion without a word of sentiment. And that means the moment in the present timeline isn't simply a farewell. It is a pivot point that binds two timelines emotionally. It is the sorrow that drives future Janeway's resolve. It is the reason the finale's plot exists. Without this emotional rupture, Endgame would be spectacle without heart. Instead, it becomes one of Star Trek's most powerful meditations on friendship, loyalty, and the passage of time. The legacy of Tuvok's quiet strength